Hello world, it's Gojo with you once again. Hope you guys are doing well. Today, I'll be going over the last 5 episodes of the Ultraman Netflix series, and also just discussing how I felt about the finale of the season, and also generally talking about where I'd like to see the show go from here. The last 5 episodes really start to introduce one more major character, really starting to bridge an arc that's been kind of going on this whole season with Bemular, and kind of come to a climatic final battle, which is what we all expected and wanted. But of course, there's also some interesting storylines going on and some dramatic moments that are happening. And it's really cool to see where the show has come from, where it started with just a young boy learning his powers, and where we end up in the final episode. I feel like the show manages to end on a good note that kind of wraps everything together. Overall, I feel like the ending is nice, precise, and it's a cool final battle that helps bring everything together. But I'm gonna go more in depth into this review of the last 5 episodes. So won't you come with me on this journey? Episode 9 introduces the character of Seiji Hokuto, who appears as a freshman at Shinjiro's high school, or at least appears to be. And he startles Shinjiro when he kind of tells him, "Hey, I know you're Ultraman," and then he kind of disappears and refers to him as Big Brother. Shinjiro freaks out because how does this random kid know who he really is? And he kind of warns the Science Patrol. Later on, when he's fighting a monster, a mysterious other Ultraman shows up to help him, and he quickly realizes that it's actually Seiji that he met. It's really cool how they introduce Seiji, because he is an Ultraman, but he's not like the other ones, because he's kind of his own independently built Ultraman. And as we learn, he's kind of funding his operation through illicit means. He's not really a bad guy, but he's like a vigilante, right? He goes after people who are conducting criminal acts, like he attacks a group of criminals. He goes in and interrupts their robbery, but then also steals the money, which then he uses to fund more parts for his suit. So again, a vigilante type character who wants to be on the side of justice, but also is very pragmatic, and he needs something, so he'll get it done, kind of a thing. Like if he needs the money, he'll go get it, and he has very little mercy. And then in episode 10, he turns himself over to the Science Patrol. He asks if he can join the organization, or at least keep the Ultraman suit, in order to help out and say that he wants to be an Ultraman. And he explains, of course, in his backstory, that he grew up with an alien girl who lived on Earth as a hidden alien, like many other aliens do, and having to pretend to be human. He felt that if he was Ultraman, he could help bring to justice evil aliens that cause humans to be scared of aliens. That way, finally, humans can learn to respect and treat aliens fairly, and this young girl can be a normal part of society. That's kind of what his motivation is, but there's a bit more to it. Now, of course, reading up, he's never called this in the show, but reading it up, he's actually Ultraman Ace, and I guess Moriboshi is Ultraman, or is ultraseven. Again, this is my first real taste of Ultraman, so I'm not as familiar with those series, but I do realize that these are kind of like reimaginings, if you will, of those other series. So it's cool that they're bringing in already the other Ultramen into this show. So, you know, they're building the team of Ultra people, I guess. As Seiji's story continues to build, there's a conflict between him and the Science Patrol, because obviously the Science Patrol wants to do everything legitimately, and they want to face the alien threats, but also, you know, be about justice and the right way to do things. And Seiji is more like a vigilante, and he wants to punish criminals and extort them for money, and he's very remorseless. And this kind of behavior brings him into conflict. One day, Shinjiro finds him blackmailing a man for money, because the man had been doing activities with younger girls. Seiji was extorting him in order to get money, and Shinjiro kind of broke it up and confronted him on his behavior and said that this is not right, this is not what an Ultraman would do. and the two begin to fight, kind of as a way to decide who will be the real Ultraman. Then Moroboshi shows up as well, and during the battle, it's revealed that Seiji, his arms are not real, they're prosthetic limbs, which is also his backstory is being revealed, that he was involved on a plane that was destroyed about 12 years before, supposedly destroyed by Bemular, and there were supposed to be no survivors, but apparently Seiji was one of the actual survivors in this plane that was destroyed, and this will be revealed further towards the end of the show. I think this is a cool episode because there's more of this character development, and Seiji is so different from Moroboshi and Shinjiro. You know, Shinjiro is kind of, he's just Ultraman in a way still because they asked him to be and he said yes. Moroboshi is Ultraman because he has to protect humans from dangerous aliens. This is his mission. And Seiji is doing this because he wants to create a better world so that aliens hiding on Earth can live with other aliens. But Seiji has his own way of handling things from the other two, that he's willing to get his hands dirty to get the job done. And it brings him into conflict with the other members because obviously they have more morals and ethics and codes that they won't break, that Seiji is more than willing to break. It shows how interesting and dynamic this relationship between these characters is becoming. Another big part of episode 11 is that the pop singer Rena Sayama, that Shinjiro has like a crush on and has been trying to talk to, is leaving. She tells him that she needs a break. Her agents are saying that she should take a break, so she's going to go to New York to study and maybe stay there afterwards for a little while. And of course Shinjiro is heartbroken. In the midst of their conversation, some workers are falling off a building, and Shinjiro quickly runs off to call Ultraman, then saves them, then runs back. But Rena figures out the truth. As she leaves and says goodbye at the train station, it's pretty much hinted at that she knows that he's Ultraman, and she ends up leaving. And Shinjiro is in a strange place now because obviously she accepts that he's Ultraman, but also she's leaving, and he still has a job to do, because there's still all these situation with Seiji, and still this overarching story of Bemular, and it's kind of put Shinjiro in a weird place. I thought it was interesting to have the love interest of the story kind of leave already too. She wasn't going to be, this is only the 11th episode, there's still 2 more episodes left, and they've already taken out the love interest. But also I think it allows Shinjiro to focus, especially because the next 2 episodes are much more about the big climatic finale. And I'm also glad they didn't go with like the super cliche trope that the bad guys kidnap the love interest, and so hero has to go save the love interest or crush. That would have been super cliche, super typical. So in a way I'm kind of glad that she just kind of leaves, says her goodbyes, he laments that she's leaving, but then he goes on forward because he's got to do his mission. And I think that was a good way for her to kind of exit stage left. Episode 12 really starts to kick up the action. At this point, it is revealed that Seiji was on that plane that was destroyed, not by Bemular, but by mercenaries 12 years ago. And these mercenaries have kind of been discovered, and Seiji knows of their location. So he goes after them. And Seiji's caretaker, an alien that's been taking care of him all these years, as he was basically orphaned and helped create his prosthetic limbs and create his Ultraman suit, goes to the science patrol. He has no choice, and he asks for their help because Seiji is walking into a trap if he goes after the mercenary. So he's asking the science patrol and the Ultramen to go save Seiji and stop him from getting killed, basically. So Moroboshi and Shinjiro really don't waste that much time in deciding to go help him, and they decide to go to the house where the mercenaries are. Seiji decides to wait for them to go first because he knows that the science patrol might help him out. Turns out it's a trap, of course. The house is rigged to explode, and the science patrol gets blown up, and then the mercenaries show up, and they start a big fight, and then of course Seiji joins in too to fight them. Episode 12 kind of really ends with them all locked in combat, and even Seiji coming in, because really the mercenaries are there to take him. Episode 13 continues with the Titanic struggle. Seiji gets some good hits in on the main mercenary. The mercenary has this uncanny ability to bring himself back to life thanks to one of his henchmen who can like use plant tentacle powers. So he basically comes back to life even though there's a huge gaping hole in his chest, and stabs Seiji, who's already beat up at this point, and leaves the poor boy to die. Shinjiro, frustrated and angry at this point, is taken over with emotion and realizes his true power and is able to come to terms with who he is as Ultraman, and decides that the real reason he's Ultraman is because this is almost what he's destined to do, and he has to use his powers to help people, and is able to release the limiter himself without needing the suit to do it for him, which is incredible. And he comes into his true Ultraman form and is able to summon or to shoot a specium ray, which is what it's called when the Ultraman does this and he shoots the beam, and is able to destroy the final mercenary. And of course the Science Patrol is blown away because, you know, he's not supposed to be able to do that himself, and they realize that he really is the next Ultraman. Almost unfortunately, the mercenary had a failsafe, and I guess upon his death it triggered like his ship to which is right above Earth's atmosphere, to shoot a missile right down at them. Fortunately though, Bemular shows up and destroys this last missile, and then takes Seiji with him, promising that he can bring the boy back to life. And it also seems that Bemular has accepted that Shinjiro is the next Ultraman. Really, that whole sequence was just to say, hey, Shinjiro is Ultraman. It's not just, you know, that he has some powers, but he's able to use, but he can really summon all the real powers of Ultraman. So a really, you know, cool climatic battle. There's a lot of action. The mercenaries are really have a lot of powers and abilities, and they're super dangerous and really tough to beat. And it's also very emotional because Seiji is fighting, and you can feel Shinjiro's wrath, feeling like he can't do anything, and that's what helps him come into his final full form. And basically it's a cool way that this whole season has really been leading up to the real origin of Ultraman. It's really now that we finally get to see him in his full form, and so the whole origins has really come to fruition. Overall, these last 5 episodes really built up to this climatic finale. They introduced the Seiji Hokuto character, who ends up becoming a cool new addition of the Ultra Trio in this show, bringing in a whole different personality and bringing in interesting conflicts, but also again building up to this very emotional finale. And also we get to see Shinjiro kind of say goodbye to Ren Asayama, and then at the end become really Ultraman, accept his role as Ultraman, not just something that he was just asked to do, but something that he believes he must do now. With this finale, I had kind of said before, it helps to wrap everything up together. Some of the subplots with the mercenaries and Bemular and other things with the agent were getting a little bit messy, and Seiji's caretaker, and I was kind of going, okay. And then of course even earlier with the assassins or with the people that were killing Ren Asayama's critics with alien technology, like some of these subplots and arcs were a little bit complicated. And of course the mercenaries felt like they were introduced almost just at the very end of the season. It might have been more interesting if we had met them earlier, so we could start to really build more interest in them or get to know them more, because really we only get to know them in the last 2 episodes, and there really isn't time to find out who they are, and they immediately get all killed. So we never had time to really understand who the villains are, because it turns out they were the real villains the whole time, not Bemular. Overall, I really enjoyed that final battle. I felt like it was nice to just get a cool fight between the 3 Ultramen and all these superpowered aliens. It's a lot of action, a lot of cool visual effects, and it brought the whole story together. And of course, we have Bemular finally accepting Shinjiro's Ultraman, and then he decides to save Seiji. So it's like everything kind of came together pretty nicely. I think in terms of Shinjiro's story, I think that's where it succeeded most, in that kind of the story of a young man coming to terms with his superpowers and accepting his role. I think that's where the story is strongest. I think some of the backstory is a little weak, and some of the story arcs could have been stronger, but the main character story I think is done very well. As for the next season, I'm not really sure what they'll do. Of course, again, not being super familiar with all the characters and aliens and other Ultra people, and I haven't read the manga, so I don't know what will happen next, but I'm excited. I'm hoping to see more Ultramen show up. Maybe other characters will come back, Ren Sayama. I'm sure they're going to kind of continue this plot of some rift going on between the Star Cluster Council, Bemular, and the Science Patrol. If anything, though, what I would like is possibly a more interesting villain for the second season. Like I said, the mercenaries were cool, but we really got no time to know them. They just showed up and then were killed like an episode later. Bemular turns out was not really the villain. The agent was an interesting character and somewhat of an antagonist, but not really a villain. So I'm hoping the next season really gives us a good, interesting villain that we actually get to know. Try to make the subplots and main story arc, a bit more streamlined and not so kind of messy. And I think the second season could be even better than the first. But I'm excited. And of course, when the trailer drops for season 2, I'll definitely be doing a reaction. And I'm really excited to see where the series is going to go. So overall, I enjoyed this season. It was fun, it was entertaining to watch, and I think that it was definitely, better than I expected. And I'm not really an anime fan. So for me coming in, I was really just interested because it was Ultraman, and in that sense, I was actually quite satisfied. That's it for this review of these episodes and the Ultraman Netflix series. Comment below, let me know what you guys thought of these last 5 episodes, what you thought of this whole series in general. Are you excited for the second season? Especially for you Ultraman fans that are diehard. Anyway, that's it for this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!